And these things kind of add up. So let me talk about abandonment and trauma. I'm going to get a little bit real on this one. The video is going to get a little bit longer. Alright, so I'm actually talking about this openly. When I grew up, we'll start at the beginning. I grew up in a church parsonage. So, you know that house that churches own when they, like, the pastor lives in them? Well, Pastor Yokers, he was the one running Christ Lutheran Church in Salem, Oregon. Mint works. Holy crap, mint works. I got a Scotty chai, so I even bought this stuff. But the Scotty chai, I added mint to it in soy milk. And the flavor is just woof. You know what I mean? Like, good God, get out of here with that. But see, I keep beating around the bush because I don't want to talk about this. We look at the church parsonage, and for like the first 7 years of my life, it was a slow workup from Goodwill Toys and an Atari 2600, which the games were super cheap at Goodwill. It was friggin' awesome. I loved it. I nailed basketball. You kidding? I used to play that with my best friend as a kid. Nailed it. And of course, he loved the tank game, which, cheater. But that's my grandmother sold quilt tops for the homeless. She was about to be a literal nun before meeting my grandfather. I've mentioned that before. But she always had a heart of gold. In fact, my family, we would always sponsor another family once I became 7 years old. And my father was doing halfway well. He bought a house. One of those things I'll never buy. Grams did a lot of my raising. I very much consider my grandmother my mom, because she had patience. It made all the difference. And when she had that patience with me, man, I was so grateful. I love my grandma so much. I love her. And she has such a big part to do with my ability to experience and learn empathy. She shaved several years off the learning curve. But then again, I'm not the only autistic person she raised. So fast forward. My father and I never really connected. He always wanted me to like the things he tried to connect with me at times. It's just, he doesn't know how to. He didn't know how to. And then along the line, he gave up. See, my sister, I won't get into that, but I was a fat kid, then I was a rebellious kid, and I'm very adventurous. I never met in my entire life a tree that I didn't want to climb. Not a single tree. But despite the niceties, my father was an authoritarian. And being an authoritarian and being disappointed in his fat son and all of that, his son's weird. He's super smart, but super weird. And of course, autism wasn't the diagnosis at the time. It was ADHD. And they didn't know what the hell to do about it. They threw me on pills around 8th grade, which I had a cyst occipital lobe, which directly impacted my vision as well as my hearing. So not only am I autistic, I hear things. Also gone. It got rid of itself. Anywho, I joined track, didn't join football or anything like that because I don't like team sports. I don't like being around other people like that. I like martial arts. That's the one where I only have to rely on myself. But then I quit track and I joined the step team. Now, if you knew why I joined the step team, any father would be proud. Okay? I was one dude with 28 women and no competition. Yeah, that's right. Get over there. Acting all brand new when you're driving. So I joined 17. I'm in salsa club. Se habla español. So I still know how to speak it a little bit. And I take my first prom date to prom in 10th grade. I'm always running around. I'm always rebellious. I'm in college as of 10th grade. And then 12th grade rolls around. I break my foot with a girl I've been chasing since literally 8th grade. I'll call her Susie the homemaker. Long story short, my foot breaks when the bed breaks. And I take my 7th and 8th grade crushes, 2 different women, to prom, on a broken foot with a pimp cane. I played it off like a pimp limp. Afterwards, I graduated, had a few bucks to my name, and so I got kicked out. That was an abandonment issue. My parents didn't really raise me. I always felt like an extra burden. In fact, I still do. I always felt like the child and the adult that everybody hoped would succeed. They expected me to fail, but they hoped I would succeed. When you go through a lifetime that, there are some abandonment issues. So my father kicks me out at 18, and then my brother sells my sports truck for no other reason than just being him. I end up thinking I'm completely alone for like 10 years. So 18 to 28 or so, I'm just like, you know what? I don't need nobody. And it was an adventurous life. I almost lost it a few times. But I'm still here. Don't even have any scars, but not for lack of effort. So it comes the time, about 4 years ago, when I really, really needed help. Instead of helping me and, doing the Les Schwab thing so that I can keep my Uber and Lyft money going when my brakes were going out, my father cuts corners like he always does. I'm an afterthought. But somehow he doesn't just get a used car, he gets a brand new Hyundai Accent for my younger sister who's going to college so that she can go to college. I was the disappointment all my life. And my father's been directly influential in me being homeless twice. Like, that's an abandonment issue. But for almost 10 years, exactly 10 years, my brother selling my truck, nobody believed my side of the story. And then here's the thing, my mother finally called him and said, "Hey, did you do this?" "Yeah." "Ma'am," my mother believed me, and she gave him a firm talking to. That cost me years of my life. My father cost me years of progress. I moved out and lived with a drug dealer, kung fu drug dealer. I mean, who has that story? So I start my own business in Arizona after getting the hell away from family, which I'm not going to go into. I wrote a book about it. I'm just tired. Start my own business with my last $800 of unemployment to go into an auction. I learned computers from scratch. No background experience in them except for playing video games. I get into consulting, into college tutoring, meaning I was doing college students' homework, usually. Not all of them. My first student and my last students. Yeah, my best students and the most impressive. The most impressive by far. They both went from a sub 2.0 GPA to graduating with honors. One of them graduated magna cum laude on his master's degree. Very proud. But I get bored with selling computers from home and building websites and dealing with people I don't like, looking for a discount. So I take my consulting and all of that to Chicago, pursuing a project for an invention that I'm still pursuing. I just needed a little bit more expertise. I didn't know how to perform certain equations. I never learned the math for it. Southside Chicago, the guy I was dealing with, he worked in the music industry, and I mean, I sold him computers for 3 years from it, meaning he would pay me in studio recording or a professional studio. In Tennessee, there we go. I knew it was another teamwork. Find his in Tennessee. I mean, we had a good relationship. We talked up and down, left and right. He kept saying, come to Chicago, or come to St. Louis, is what he said, because he was in St. Louis. I'm like, all right. So I go to St. Louis, and I mean, I did my vetting on him. He seemed legit enough. But I get there, and I'm waiting at the airport for 4 hours for him to sing to my gut just to see how things live out. Shout out to Team 4-Star. So, bring it. Wait 4 hours. We end up living in a hotel because the apartment fell. Live in a hotel with the 2-bed hotel for 2 weeks. And he's, slinging and slanging to go into setting up different shows with like Jodeci and Boys to Men and so on and so forth, like reunion shows. He's the one who goes up. And he was also trying to sign Sicko Mob and a few other emergent artists. Back when Sicko Mob came out with, I still got the contracts and email. Just because I was curious and I like to keep record. So anyway, we ended up going to Chicago, living with his sister, with the baby. His baby's daddy is a gangster, like a thug, who deals in drugs, you know what I mean? And I'm talking the heavy stuff. There's heroin, cocaine, all that good stuff. Met the guy one time, didn't want to meet him twice. But then again, there was nothing I could gain from him. Otherwise, I probably would have. I get out there through the grace of God. And I'm not joking about this. I've been coaching since I was 14. That's Church of God in Christ. Full gospel Pentecostal. You are cursed with a curse. Piece of salt in a pepper shaker. You don't have too many wipes in the coaching. And I went there. I lost everything. Because the guy wouldn't go to get my freight, which I shipped from Arizona because I was going to move. So I lost everything. And the hardest part was losing my book collection. I read every book. It was 2 to 3 bookshelves, multiple boxes, double stacked. Like double stacked and then books on top. I read every one of them. From physics to psychology to just good old novels from R.A. Salvatore. So I lose everything. I go to the church through one of the neighbors I met because he was always wearing a suit. So I'm like, all right, let's check this out. He tells me about a Kojic church around there. And I didn't even ask Kojic. I just asked, hey, what's a local church? And I go to church with him. I meet this guy named Hardy Evans. And it was a business after church thing. Like there was it was after church. So after the sermon. We get to talking and rapping. And he introduces me to Mr. Bell. I tell Hardy my situation. He advocates for me to somebody he knows to try and get me into a loft. And I get into this loft for the first 2 months on credit, just on good faith. The man said, don't let me down. He had faith in me and he saw another man in need. And again, I'm still a piece of salt in the pepper shaker. It's Southside Chicago Heights, Illinois. So, yeah. And a food desert. It's very much a food desert. Long story short, I get in with some of the local churches. My brother's keeper is one of them. I learned that you have to go make a circuit of church. You got to go through a circuit of churches to get elected in Southside. So, religion is a really huge part of the black community down there. In fact, it's a huge part of the black community. Anything east of, I would say, Arizona, or even parts of Arizona too. Like, huge part of the black community. I get into the loft for 2 months, but the first 2 days there's no gas. So the first 2 days are negative 18 degrees with no heat. It was one of the few times I slept in my sweats and then some. What's going on with you, car? Sorry, my truck just had something weird go on with the RPM. Like to where it felt like it was straining. I've got everything going on in the background while I'm talking to you. So, yeah, I lose everything, but I get into a loft. And the first job I find, because I'm going to college at this time too, I decided to, hey, stop doing other people's homework, because the free education is a free education, but I can't translate that education into a resume. And business ownership, I mean, it has its ups and downs. I haven't been stable enough to have that. Freaking that post-nasal drip, man. That's why I don't get regular milk. Oh, but that Scotty chai with just a hint of creme de menthe is freaking awesome. I'm really glad I made that decision. Not so glad about living in Chicago. So I go through this circuit. I wouldn't say a circuit of churches, but I'm networking with the right people. Plus, I'm also starting a program for at-risk youth. By this time, I had already been the premier computer builder in Phoenix, Arizona. I built computers for Sony Interscope Studios, flight simulator setups for flight schools, and so on and so forth. I've set up call centers and internet cafes. Like, I really got into it. And my custom computers, they outclocked anything, including Alienware, at the time. Like, before Dell bought them out and they turned into a crap company, yeah, my computers were pristine. They outclocked everybody. And they under-temped everybody. In fact, I'll tell you about my own rig right now, but I'm very proud of my setups. So, I get into politics. I meet Eric Kellogg. He is the mayor of Harvey, Illinois. So I'm doing Zero to Tech, which is, it teaches at-risk youth and teenagers IT skills. So I was teaching A+ certification. It was a 2-month program. But by the end of those 2 months, any of my students should be able to get their A+ certification from CompTIA and be able to freelance and support themselves like I did for years. I did IT for years and tutoring, that's it. So, doing college, survived the cold and all of that. A little bit of frostbite, but like, my hands still can't take the cold so much when it gets really cold, but the rest of the time, like, they're fine. Like right now, I've got maybe pain in these 2 knuckles. The arthritis, you get used to it. And the arthritis was earned through martial arts. Yeah, big into martial arts. And a choir boy. You have no idea how interesting I am. But that's also because I keep it private. Like, my stories and my accomplishments and my capabilities were always for me, not for anybody else. Alright, so Southside Chicago, Zero to Tech. I link up with the community center, almost get the thing, launched, but nobody wants to take the program on. So, but I mean, at-risk youth, that's something close to me in the Black community. Black Lives Matter, always remember that. I meet this guy named Eric Kellogg through a guy who was running a community center in Harvey, Illinois, Mr. Washington. That's the only way I knew him. I knew him as Mr. Washington. Never learned his first name. But he's a nice enough guy, a little heavyweight. He calls me up one day when he finds out that I'm doing political consulting and working with a guy that apparently is taking on Eric Kellogg, right? He's taking on the incumbent. And Mr. Washington, I'm thinking he's pushing Zero to Tech and he's finally going to pull the trigger. He says, I got somebody I want you to meet. I go over there and catch the bus. Make it to his little, his community center. He walks me to, he says, get in the car. It was a black Cadillac. Not joking. I think it was a 2008. So, and every alarm bell is going off, like black Cadillac, south side of Chicago. I got someone I want you to meet, but they don't mention the name. Like, all right. YOLO. That's exactly what went through my head as I opened that door. I get in, and the passenger front seat, guy turns around, it's Eric Kellogg. Now let me tell you something about Eric. One, he's dead now, because he got offed by Mr. Washington, who took over the mayorship of Harvey, Illinois, because Eric Kellogg, he owned Harvey, Illinois. All of his family were in all the key positions. And I've never been threatened so many times about being threatened, like actually threatened in my life. I understand why the man was indicted 21 times and never convicted. He had a reputation out there. He really, really, really did. And it was earned. So I'm in the backseat of this black Cadillac, looking to work with the guy challenging him. Only, now I'm not. I play it meek. I played it very bitchy. I acted like a bitch. But that's also what got me out of many situations in life. I'm always wearing a mask, and this time I decided to play ignorant and humble. I walk out of there, Eric shakes my hand. And in no uncertain terms, hey, maybe Chicago's not built for you. So I'm looking at this Cavalier, this tan Cavalier that's just driving like a banshee. Cavaliers are good cars. So anyway, tail tucked between my legs, I suffer my first panic attack. I get home, and all of a sudden I'm thinking my childhood asthma is coming back. It was borderline acute asthma. And I can't breathe. I'm feeling sweaty a little bit, but not really. Like it's cold, but you know the feeling, right? So I'm thinking I'm gonna die. I'm gonna suffocate and die. I call up the 911, go to there, and I mean they get me in fairly quick. Like the ambulance guys, they said, yeah, everything's out of the pill. Doctor walks up for basically the first time, just temporarily. Then my very first client, my tutoring client, he's the regional director for a national company, a really big one. So he calls me up in Arizona again. I'll make another one on, see how that goes.